Hello, welcome to Brickwall Pictures. I'm Sam, and today I'm going to be ranking 10 Jim Jarmusch films. Jim Jarmusch is a very interesting filmmaker. He's quite eccentric and makes very particular movies that are certainly not for everybody. He has a distinctly indie feel, even though he's been making movies for decades at this point, and a number of them have been quite successful. It's actually kind of impressive how many of his films have been as successful as they have been, considering how peculiar his style is. He frequently casts musicians in acting roles, which I think is really cool, and he gets good performances out of most of them, at least. Jim Jarmusch looks like David Lynch plus Nick Cave. Coffee and Cigarettes. This might have been the first Jim Jarmusch film I saw. I'm trying to remember if I watched it because I love Steve Buscemi and he's in it, or I think I might have actually watched it because it was right around the time that I really got into the White Stripes. And the White Stripes are in it, both Jack White and Meg White.
So, Jack, you gonna tell me about your Tesla car?
You said you didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
It's a black and white vignette film. And as you'll see throughout the tier list, he is a filmmaker who works in black and white pretty regularly, more than a lot of filmmakers do. And to be honest, I prefer his black and white cinematography. I kind of think his particular framing and like camera work style, his flair for cinematography just looks a little nicer in black and white. It looks really, really nice in black and white. It still looks good in color. Anyway, Coffee and Cigarettes has such a great cast. Beyond Buscemi and it being cool to see the White Stripes in their Tesla coil. You got Tom Waits in there. You got, I think, Iggy Pop's in there. Cate Blanchett, who's actually doing two parts, kind of like, it's almost like a predecessor to that film she did where she plays a whole bunch of characters. I think it was called Manifesto. Roberto Benigni's in there too. Stephen Wright is in there. He's fun to see. You got RZA in there. Actually, I think you have multiple Wu-Tang Clan people in there.
Bill, Groundhog Day, ghost busting ass Murray.
Who you gonna call?
I know that. Just don't tell anybody.
The way they interact is so fucking funny.
Damn. That don't sound too good, Bill Murray.
Coffee and Cigarettes it's like an exercise in style with just an ungodly cast. And if you don't know, Coffee and Cigarettes, this feature film was actually first made as like a series of short films. So the full production timeline for this movie was 17 years, which is kind of crazy. But it's not like he was just like working on it meticulously for 17 years. It would be like, oh, hey, I got Tom Waits and Iggy Pop free for an afternoon. Let's hang out in this coffee shop and we'll shoot a little scene, a little vignette. And that's why the cast is as cool as it is, because it would be like, okay, let's shoot a random scene, and then, whenever he would get these people free. Also, Coffee and Cigarettes, just kind of like the title, the whole vibe of it, it really is just like 11 little conversations between these famous people while they drink coffee and smoke cigarettes. It kind of fits the vibe of his whole filmography. It kind of fits the vibe of like a David Lynch filmography too, Coffee and Cigarettes. He's a very like stylistic filmmaker. Jim Jarmusch is often style over substance, but I dig his style. Coffee and Cigarettes, I think it is an A. But you have to be into like vignette films. I am, but a lot of people don't really like vignette films, and there are good reasons for it, because it's like you don't have like a through line character, you don't have an overarching narrative, you don't have like, the vignettes don't really build on each other, there's not much of a story going on at all. Even within each individual vignette, there's not a ton of story. It's just kind of like little snapshots. Next up is Ghost Dog. Yeah, so it sounds like it wouldn't work. You got Forrest Whitaker playing a guy who models his entire lifestyle after the samurai of ancient Japan, except he lives in modern day New Jersey, and he's like a hitman. It's got this really, really cool hip hop soundtrack that RZA did. I think it might have been RZA's first time composing for a movie. It was his first screen performance, I think. At least release date. He might have even shot the Coffee and Cigarettes one first. What I always heard before watching Ghost Dog is everyone was just like, it's cool. It's like extremely cool. Cool is the one word that I always hear associated with Ghost Dog. And honestly, it's a kind of a word that fits Jarmusch's filmmaking style. It's like cool, and that kind of ties into the whole style over substance thing. Ghost Dog is really cool, but there are some things in it that are supposed to be cool that I don't personally find cool. I think it gets a little cringy. A lot of people probably think it's the way that he like holsters his gun is cool. He does like the you like spin a sword and you holster it or whatever, like that thing. He does that with a pistol, and that's supposed to be cool, but it's just so cringy. And there are points throughout this movie where Ghost Dog as a character, it feels like that kid you went to high school with who bought a samurai sword at the mall and then made it his whole identity. He's not 100% cool all the time like I think some people think he is. I also have one big issue, and that's that the samurai sword is a huge Chekhov's gun failure. The samurai sword's on the poster, and we see him like practicing with it. He never uses the fucking samurai sword. You can't have a setup like that and not pay it off. Chekhov's gun's a pretty basic writing thing in dramaturgy, Another failed Chekhov's gun, he has this big sniper rifle that he never uses either. They make a big deal about him getting it out of the floorboards and assembling it and like looking through the scope and all that, and then he never fucking uses it. He just uses his handguns the whole time. I have a problem with that on a writing level. The ending like showdown feels a little forced because they're also trying to blend in some like Western elements with the like samurai. It's like an East and West kind of fusion. The Western elements don't work as well for me. The ending showdown feels kind of forced. It's like there's not a good enough reason for it to happen, but it's like, we're doing a Western homage, so we need a big showdown, like a high noon kind of thing. That feels a little forced to me, more so than the samurai elements, which are mostly really cool, even though he doesn't actually use the sword. Forrest Whitaker gives a great performance, and he is really cool through most of it. I really like the little girl he befriends in the park. Oh, and the ice cream salesman, he's fucking great. He only speaks French the whole movie, and the way that they interact with each other is a ton of fun. The villains are a little weak. They're a little lukewarm. The like Italian gangster guys. It's pretty clear that they are supposed to be like stereotypical Italian gangsters. I liked how like they were all kind of old and like not like in their prime. I liked that angle too. It reminded me of Way of the Gun in that way. But they're not super memorable characters, and they're maybe a little too stereotypical. I don't know. I did really like Ghost Dog, but I also have quite a few issues with it. It's like between A or B for me. I think most people would put it in the A. And I'm tempted to as well because I like a lot of what it does, and I also like how like different it is amongst Jarmusch's filmography. Like it is, it's not like a action movie, but there is action in it. There's a pretty big like action-y climax, like a big shootout. He does a great job of just using music to create a vibe and then just sort of filming his characters walking around, which sounds boring, and I think for a lot of people it will be boring. There's something so cool about the way that he uses music and really simple cinematography. And I think my favorite part of this, and the part that I think is actually the coolest, even though it seems really simple, and it's even like missable, I guess, but it's like he's walking on the street and there's like pedestrians on the street, and the way Forrest Whitaker moves, he never like slows down or veers out of his way or whatever, but he just kind of like effortlessly walks in this way where he's like invisible to everybody, even though he's like this big guy with a big briefcase and all that, he will like walk right between two people, and it's just so perfectly timed to where they're like naturally like looking away. It's like one of them's like bending over to take the trash out, the other one's like sweeping the step or whatever, and he just kind of like glides between them. It's really cool, and that's not something I've seen before. Yeah, it's between A or B. It's kind of tough for me because like I feel like the good parts are A worthy, and then there are some issues ahead of it that do bring it down a bit. I don't know. I'm not sure where to put it, actually. I'm a little torn. I think right now I'm going to put it in B, but I'm subject to change, I'm going to review all my choices at the end of the list, see if I want to move stuff around. Okay, next up is Only Lovers Left Alive. This one, I think, went a little bit under the radar. It's really interesting that Jarmusch has made so many movies that are just like really simple and talky and stripped back, and then he occasionally does these like genre films, but they still have his style. It's this interesting balance of how much he embraces the genre while also making a film that does not at all feel at home in the genre, and it feels distinctly him. Only Lovers Left Alive was his first sort of like horror foray, even though it's not like horror in the sense of, it's not like trying to be scary or anything like that. But it's a vampire film, and I think if you went into Only Lovers Left Alive just looking for a vampire film, it's probably not going to give you what you want. Going into it expecting a Jim Jarmusch film and knowing like he's not going to do the typical kind of thing with vampires, I think it's a really interesting film in that regard. I think Tom Hiddleston's really good in it, actually, and he's an actor who Like, I don't like the Marvel movies or whatever, so I know, like, Loki's the thing he's most famous for. I wasn't too familiar with him before this, but I thought he was great in Only Lovers Left Alive. And, of course, Tilda Swinton is incredible in it. She's always incredible. She's in some of his other movies, too. I think the two of them are such a great pair for it. Jeffrey Wright is really interesting in this as well, in, like, a side part. They talk about Jack White at one point, which is interesting, considering him and Jarmusch work together. I feel like soundtracks in general are an integral element to Jim Jarmusch's like filming experiences, because the soundtrack does like really heavy lifting. The Only Lovers Left Alive soundtrack is one that I have just listened to like on YouTube after the fact, just kind of like on its own. I think it's really cool. It's very moody. It's kind of light on plot, and the story isn't like anything too crazy. It does do some interesting things with the vampire conceit, with this idea of like they've been living for like centuries and like they're running out of things to do. But it is cool to see like a romance between these people who have been together for like centuries, and you do kind of buy it, as far-fetched as it sounds. You do buy that they've been together for so long and like had these other experiences and whatnot. I like it a whole lot. I think it's another B tier. Okay, next up is Stranger Than Paradise. This was like his breakthrough film. It wasn't his first film. His first film was Permanent Vacation, but Stranger Than Paradise was his second film, and it was a lot bigger. Also extremely indie, super, super low budget. It's a very simple movie. It's basically 3 actors. There are some other people in it, but it's mostly just these 3 characters. The movie feels like it's entirely improvised. Almost every scene begins and ends with like a cut to black or a fade to black. There's hardly any like editing within the scenes. The scenes are pretty long, and a lot of them are just like a single shot, and it'll linger a long time, and there's these really long pauses and silences. And while I can understand why people would call a lot of Jarmusch's films boring, but I didn't find them boring, I did find Stranger Than Paradise a little boring. This is probably one of his most, if not his absolute most, like critically acclaimed film. But I gotta say, it didn't work very well for me. It's like I get what it was doing. It does have a point, but I feel like its point is something you could get across in like a 10-minute short film instead of a feature-length film that just really drags on. It is a pretty important film for like indie filmmaking. It's cool to see John Laurie in there. He came back in like Down by Law and whatnot. He's the lead singer of Lounge Lizards, by the way, if you didn't know that band. And he's the guy from that Fishing with John show, that weirdness. I'm going to give it D tier. Didn't do a whole lot for me. Okay, Down by Law, on the other hand, which is similar in some ways to Stranger Than Paradise, but it's kind of like Stranger Than Paradise was like a rough draft for Down by Law. Down by Law is also, it's again in black and white. It's again got John Laurie. It's again very slow and like mostly just 3 characters interacting. And it helps a whole lot that the other 2 dudes are Tom Waits and Roberto Benigni this time. And the 3 of them interacting is just so much fun, especially Tom Waits. I watched Down by Law without knowing it was a Jim Jarmusch film just because I was a fan of Tom Waits, and I grabbed this movie randomly off a library shelf. I think it's one of his best looking films. It's again black and white, and I think the cinematography is just gorgeous. The optimal words when discussing Jim Jarmusch are like cool, vibe, atmosphere, music, and I think all of that works really well in Down by Law. It's an A tier one for me. Okay, The Dead Don't Die. This one got so much hate upon release. So I didn't watch it for a while because I just saw everyone was like, oh, it's awful. After watching it, I think it might have just been people who weren't familiar with Jim Jarmusch and were expecting a conventional zombie film, right? Going into it with admittedly very low expectations, but going into it also knowing who Jim Jarmusch is and knowing what his filmmaking style is, it was kind of exactly what I expected. Like, I didn't know what people were hoping for from a Jim Jarmusch zombie film. I think I got exactly what I wanted. There are some problems with it, like the alien connection is a little bit of a stretch. The political commentary isn't the most refined. And there's a really bad day for night sequence where it's just like they tinted obvious daytime footage blue. It's almost like the movie is a joke in and of itself. Like it's a self-aware kind of movie. It worked for me though. Like honestly, I know people hate it. I had a lot of fun with it. I was laughing a lot throughout. I think Adam Driver and Bill Murray make such a good like buddy duo. They were so much fun to watch. I think there's really great comedic moments throughout too. Buscemi was great to see. Tilda Swinton was great to see. I mean, the cast is just incredible, honestly. The fourth wall breaking stuff is odd. And I can totally see why a lot of people would be like, what the fuck is this? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you breaking the fourth wall like this? I liked it. I thought it was funny. They don't do it a whole lot. It almost feels more suspect considering how little they do it. Like it would have been more consistent element. They only do it like a couple of times. It is interesting though, and it's part of what makes me think like the whole movie's kind of a joke. Like it's just a self-aware joke. And if you can get on board with that, I think that makes the whole experience more fun. I'll put it in C tier for now. Okay, Broken Flowers. This is another Bill Murray one. And, you know, everyone loves Bill Murray. Again, it's got some cool music, but not quite up to the standard as some of the other Jim Jarmusch films. Bill Murray gives a really good performance, really good dramatic performance. This one's a little less funny, even though there are still some funny moments. There's a great style to it. Again, lots of cool stuff. It feels a little bit like a rehash of the better parts of some other better Jim Jarmusch movies, though. I think the script is a little weaker on this one. It's in some ways it's kind of a more complex story than a lot of his films, but it just doesn't work as well. It's like I think there's one pretty big plot hole in the movie. Actually, I can't get into it without spoilers, but it kind of like this plot hole kind of like negates all of the tension and all of the stakes of the movie, and it's a plot hole that's like apparent from the very beginning of the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but it's basically like, why doesn't the character just do this extremely simple thing instead of doing this whole convoluted thing that the rest of the plot is about? It's like there's such an easier, straightforward solution to his issue, and there's no reason why he couldn't do it. But instead of doing that, he makes it this whole complicated ordeal that then takes an hour and a half to resolve. And it's kind of like, it's hard to get invested in the story and the stakes of said story when there's such an apparent upfront solution presented. I think that's a major flaw and holds the movie back a lot. C tier, maybe even D tier, depending on how much that plot hole bothers you. It lowers it a whole lot. Okay, next up is Dead Man. Dead Man's interesting because it's a film that I watched at one point many years ago, and I think I was just like too young to get it at that point. So I was pretty young, and I watched it, and I didn't like it at all. I was just bored, and I was like, what is going on here? I finally rewatched it recently. I gave it another shot, and I loved it. I was such a fucking idiot. I did not get on board with it before, and it's one of my favorite Jarmusch films now. I think it's gorgeous. The black and white cinematography is great. I really like high contrast black and white instead of that kind of like more grayscale black and white that a lot of movies do. Jarmusch really excels at that kind of grainy, really high contrast. It's like it's black and it's white. There's not a whole lot of gray in between, and that's kind of black and white that I prefer. It's just such a good cast. Like Gary Farmer's a great sidekick to Johnny Depp in the lead role. Honestly though, Johnny Depp is like, he's good. I've seen a lot of praise for his performance. I think he's a little boring just compared to the rest of the cast. Not like boring as an actor, like the character is a little boring in comparison. He's got a really interesting character arc though, and the way he kind of like builds this mystique and like he's wanted, like the price on his head keeps raising. That's all really cool. Lance Henriksen makes for a great like relentless bad guy. Billy Bob Thornton absolutely steals the show.
I don't give a shit who saw what and who did what or who did who.
He's so funny in his one little supporting role.
You gonna shoot me?
That's right, I'm gonna shoot you.
Well, why don't you shoot me then, goddammit?
I will, I'll shoot you right now.
Come on, shoot me.
I will.
Well, quit talking about it and do it, by God.
I will. There you go.
Good God, I'm hit. Lord have mercy. Burns like hellfire. You son of a bitch. I'm gonna have to kill somebody now.
Robert Mitchum gives a really good performance. John Hurt is great in his little part. Gabriel Byrne absolutely crushes it in one scene. So does Alfred Molina. And Michael Wincott, I want to give him a shout out because he's an actor whose name I didn't know and who I think I'd seen him in stuff, but like hadn't really known who he was. I thought he was great in this too. I think he's a really fun character. It's just such a good cast. It's a fun story. It's a really good Western too. It definitely feels a lot different than other Westerns. It's a very eccentric, very weird Western, and I liked it a whole lot. It's A tier. It's probably tied for my favorite with Down by Law. It might have actually surpassed Down by Law as my favorite. Maybe I'll pop it up to the S tier. For right now, I'm going to leave it an A. Mystery Train is an interesting one. It's another kind of vignette film, like Coffee and Cigarettes. Instead of like 11 or however many vignettes are in Coffee and Cigarettes, there's only 3. It's got a little bit of like the Rashomon effect going on in that it's all set in one place, and it's 3 different perspectives on the same night. And there's not a ton of overlap between the vignettes, but there is a little bit. Like in the first 2, you hear a gunshot go off, and then in the third one, you find out what that was. There's not a ton of that, though. They're mostly pretty contained. And all 3 vignettes are interesting. I think my favorite is the first one. There are these 2 Japanese tourists who are visiting Nashville, Tennessee. One of them's obsessed with Carl Perkins. The other one's obsessed with Elvis. They were just great fun to watch and see how they, navigated the city and their relationship. At first, I thought they were brother and sister. I just thought they had like major sibling energy, which made it a little weird when they started getting down and dirty. The second segment is also interesting. I loved seeing a fun supporting role from Tom Noonan. Loved seeing Tom Noonan in a little performance. I would say if there's any segment that's a little weaker, it's probably the middle segment, even though it does have the, a great Tom Noonan. And it's definitely not bad. It's interesting. But the other two are definitely firing on a higher level. The third one's great too. You have Buscemi in there, who I just always love seeing Buscemi. And you have some really good, convincing drunk performances and a really great climax between these guys in their motel room. You got a Tom Waits vocal cameo. I think I will put it in B tier. Patterson is a beautiful film. It's poetic, and I think you could kind of call some of Jarmusch's other films poetic. Like I think you could call Dead Man a little poetic, maybe even Ghost Dog a little poetic. But Patterson is literally about poetry, so it is his most poetic. Experience the thought process of this poem being written. And at first, it's like, it seems, very simple, straightforward, and you're not like impressed by the poetry, but like as it progresses, like as we follow Adam Driver's titular character through the stages of writing this poem, it's like it gets more impressive as it goes along, like the real writing process for poetry. And I think it's really great. It's like it's one of the most calm, tranquil movies you will ever see. It's really relaxing. I would say this one has less cool factor and more like tranquility. And I think it ends on just a really beautiful note of like destruction and rebirth, or like beginning again. The way that like monks will spend hours and hours building those gigantic mandalas and then just let the wind wipe the sand away. It's really beautiful. I think it's great. I think it's another A tier. So yeah, there's our little inverted staircase of a tier list. No S tier. If there was going to be an S tier out of here, it would be these two. But I don't know if we're only looking at like Jarmusch's filmography, and it's like if he had to have an S tier, then these would be his S tier films. You know what I mean? But like in the canon of all of cinema, I think they're probably just A for me. Okay, Ghost Dog is the one that a lot of people would move up to A. A lot of people would probably move down Patterson. It would probably move down Only Lovers Left Alive, and would definitely move down The Dead Don't Die. A lot of people probably would. But I liked it well enough. I think that's a C tier. Mystery Train, yeah, still feels like a B to me. Only Lovers Left Alive feels like a B. Patterson feels like an A. Ghost Dog might be an A. I'm not sure. Again, that's the one I was uncertain of. And you know what? Maybe Coffee and Cigarettes should go down to a B. That kind of feels right. These two are closer to S than they are B. These two are closer to B than they are S. So, there we go. That is my Jim Jarmusch tier list. Make sure you subscribe to Brickwall Pictures. Check out my other tier lists. I've done a whole bunch of them at this point, so look for the tier list playlist in the description. I've done a bunch of directors and some kung fu actors as well. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.